September, we had to arrive with a 15-minute presentation so that we could learn how to become more effective grief educators.
Oh no.
So this is the presentation that I gave to the 27 people who were in the room. And they said, one of the things you need to do, Marcia, is you need to tell why this is important to you. It's important to me, like I already said, because Bouncer died 26 days after Diesel. And I followed Dan's story as Diesel's health continued to deteriorate, knowing that Bouncer was very, very much walking that very same path from his abdominal cancer. His surgery in January was incredibly successful. They got the main tumor out. He had nodules on his liver. I don't know what kind of cancer he had. I didn't particularly care. No. And so this story helped me so much because when Dan would post, I would think the same story around my Bouncer, and then around my Carson, and then around my cow. You know, so I revisited all my pups who had already gone. Like, here is the briefing. It's kind of scripted, and occasionally I'm going to truly read to you. Diesel and Dan. It's a grief story. It is also a love story. Diesel dog and his person Dan, this is their story. Diesel obviously was a Toller, living a Toller's dream in the woods and waters of Nova Scotia. And Diesel's passion was hunting. And Daniel's passion is fly fishing, and it is also his solace. And Dan shared on Facebook, I shared my life with him for almost 14 years. And with enthusiasm, Diesel embraced every aspect of my life and shared all my passions. Today's story starts with Diesel's death on April 2nd, 2021. But in reality, I'm going to tell you Dan's story, and I have permission to tell Dan's story. As he organically moved through the 6 weeks of mourning into reconciliation. With his Facebook post, Dan provided pet lovers a map into his wilderness of pet loss. Dan mourned, remembered, and healed, and this is his post the morning Diesel died. To say I'm heartbroken is the biggest understatement I've ever made in my life. I have a giant hole in my chest where my heart used to be. It was love at first sight. Diesel traveled Canada and the US with me. He went to work with me almost every day. He changed my life forever and taught me a lot about love and patience. And although we were together for just short of 14 years, we had a lifetime of memories that I will never forget. My world is forever changed today. Make no mistake about it. His legacy will live on at the Diesel Dog Ranch. And I need a moment because I'm doing this here. At the Diesel Dog Ranch. He will never be forgotten. A few hours later, Dan created a video tribute to Diesel and he posted it, along with a picture of puppy Diesel dreaming of the first hunt. Over the next several days, Dan posted about a motorcycle ride with no Diesel waiting for him at the door, a lonely drive into work, the first return to the Diesel Dog Ranch, and a fly tied with Diesel's fur so that they can continue to go fishing together. And Diesel returned home. And Dan writes about his new reality that he does not want to live. He is now a bereaved dog parent. Diesel is home with me today. I'm trying to work through the pain by realizing this urn contains 5,007 days of memories that will live in my heart until one day it too stops beating. There's some solace in knowing he's home. I can still hold him, talk to him. It provides a little comfort, but it's not the same and never will be. I'd give a lot to be able to press a reset button and go back to that day when he was 10 weeks old, and I bought him this John Deere cat. For 14 years, I sacrificed a lot to be with him every day. I now have the total freedom to do anything I want and not consider him, and I feel nothing but empty. I trade all my tomorrows for a single yesterday. Dan marks the passage of time Dan marks the passage of time without Diesel, the end of the first month. The second month, Diesel's 14th birthday, moving house at the 3-month mark, and cooking the last of the rough grouse they hunted together. Sometimes the posts were written by Diesel telling his life story or looking in on Dan. Other posts tell of Dan's deep sadness and pain, and every post makes it obvious that grief and love really are two sides of the same coin. With fall comes hunting season, upland fowl, and Dan returns to hunting on December 4th, and Dan writes about that hunt. After sitting out the first 2 months of upland hunting because I couldn't convince myself to go without Diesel, I finally opened the safe and pulled out the beautiful 20-gauge Ducks Unlimited shotgun that Diesel gave me last year for my birthday. As I drove into the backcountry, I was overwhelmed with 13 years of memories. I swear I could show you every location we hunted, how many birds we got each day. It was very surreal and vivid. I will admit there were a few tears at times, but after a while, the flood of memories became more pleasant. He was always so proud when he returned with a rough grouse. The spring in his step and the swagger in his bum told the story. He was doing what he loved to do. It was a bittersweet, successful hunt. Although I could feel him with me today, by my side, I could only see him when I closed my eyes. Well, the season has ended, the holidays have passed, and 2022 arrives. And on April 10th, a new puppy arrives at the DDR. Oakley introduces himself in a long post, the first 24. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is R.C. Tollers, Oakley Knight-Errant, heir to the throne. You can call me Oakley. The life I knew came to a screeching halt on April 9th at 10:50 a.m. I was passed through the window of a metallic gray BMW that sped away with me inside of it. I had been kidnapped.
I remember that. It was so funny.
As I stood on the console trying to convince myself that panic was not going to help this situation, I caught the scent of another Toller on the man's jacket. And at this point, I started to feel a little calmer. And as I drifted into a deep sleep, I had a very vivid dream. I was with this other Toller whose scent was on the man's jacket. His name was Diesel. And as Diesel and I walked the forest of the DDR, he told me this strange man is now my parent. And I had a great and wonderful life ahead of me. He spoke of hunting birds, fishing trips, an open forest to run through, an abundance of lakes and rivers to swim in. And the daily chronicles of Oakley begin. In his last chronicles, Oakley writes, well, today is the big day. I get to meet my little sinister. And in the first Tales of Two Tollers, Zoe introduces herself. I am Neverlands. I have no idea what her voice really sounds like to you, Dan. This is her voice.
Yeah, we all have voices.
I am Neverlands. You are my sunshine, Zoe. Yesterday, I was adopted. But I wasn't scared at all because I immediately felt loved. And another Toller was in the vehicle. We arrived at a place called the Diesel Dog Ranch, and apparently it's my new home and some kind of kingdom that I get to help rule with my big brother Oakley. It has a lovely view.
It does.
It does. But it smells like hundreds of Tollers. So why did Zoe smell the pee of hundreds of Tollers at the DDR? Well, the answer is Tollermania. And Tollermania was born near the end of 2021, November-ish. Yeah, and here's a brief explanation of Tollermania written by Dan in honor of his beloved Diesel. Diesel came into my life in 2007, and he quickly became the love of my life, my adventure partner, my heart dog. When I lost Diesel, I was completely devastated. Over his lifetime, we often shared photos of our adventures and his antics on social media. And after his passing, my only solace was writing of our adventures from his perspective. And as the grief educator, I would add, Dan mourned with all his posts and stories. I found that the posts were enjoyable to most. The greatest part of my healing came from the support of wonderful people on various pages of social media. Again, the 6 in the morning, receiving, allowing help from other people. Yes, social media, where there are groups of people who genuinely care about others, and I was fortunate to find them. Someone casually mentioned one day that they would like to meet me and see the Diesel Dog Ranch, where most of our adventures began. Well, that started out as a small gathering and barbecue, quickly escalated into a 2-day international event. And I know all of us know that, but my peeps in September did not know this. Okay? Tollermania took place October 15th and 16th, 2022. It was held in Germany, Nova Scotia, on a large plot of land where I built my cottage 15 years ago. It was quickly named the Diesel Dog Ranch because it was Diesel's favorite place on earth. And at the main event and smaller gatherings before and after, 191 tollers and 430 people visited the DDR. The event raised 11,000 Canadian, 10,000 went to Toller Rescue, which also supports tollers in Ukraine, and 1K went to Elder Dog in Canada. Tollermania allowed other toller people to mourn their red dogs with a wall of fallen angels. And in November 2021, Dan posted, "As I'm on my way to work this morning, I was thinking about Tollermania. I realized everyone who attends will know Diesel's story. I honestly never took notice of how many crossed the Rainbow Bridge until I lost Diesel. And since then, I've noticed each and every one. I thought we should honor the fallen at Tollermania." And on Sunday morning, we followed the bagpiper down the hill to the pavilion, where he played Amazing Grace. And everyone gathered for a ceremony to remember the tollers on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge. T2, well, we're here now, aren't we? Check that reel. It really did. It happened for 3 days in mid-October. And T2 had a wedding. We had a wedding last night. And Dan continued his healing journey with the announcement of the engagement to Melissa. I shared my grief of losing Diesel with many members of this group. So in return, we share our joy with you. So Saturday events came to a close, and it ended with an amazing, touching, moving wedding ceremony and party to follow. Courage is what love looks like when tested by the simple, everyday necessities of being alive. David White, Consolations. Thank you, Dan, for your courage to authentically, vulnerably, and publicly mourn Diesel. You taught us how to mourn, remember, and heal when our pet dies. Trust in the journey of reconciliation. Thank you.